So here we have the heart. The heart is divided into 4 chambers. The upper 2 are called the atria and the lower 2 are called the ventricles, and I'll explain more of it throughout the video. The blood first enters the heart deoxygenated from the superior and inferior vena cavas. From the vena cavas, the blood enters the right atrium. So the blood first goes through the first valve of the heart, which is the tricuspid valve. The blood now enters the right atrium. Now the blood enters the pulmonary semilunar valve from the right atrium. The blood exits the right pulmonary artery and out the left pulmonary artery to the lungs. So arteries take blood away from the heart and veins bring blood back into the heart. The blood re-enters the heart through the right and left pulmonary veins, and now it is oxygenated. And they enter the left atrium. From the left atrium, the blood passes through the mitral valve, and now the blood enters to the left ventricle. So from the left ventricle, the blood is now going to enter through the aortic semilunar valve, which is this red vessel I drew right next to the mitral valve. So now the blood is in the aorta, which is the largest artery in the body, and the aorta breaks into smaller arteries throughout the body, which supplies all the organs with blood.
The circulatory system includes arteries, veins, capillaries, and the heart. I will specifically be focusing on the veins and the capillaries. So the vena cava, as shown here, is the area where blood enters the heart, and the pulmonary veins carry blood back to the heart. So the veins are thin muscular walls and have very large lumens. They take blood towards the heart, specifically the pulmonary vein and the vena cava. The blood is carried slowly under low pressure, and this is why the veins have valves as pictured here, unlike the arteries. The veins have valves to prevent backflow of blood, and the largest vein is the vena cava. The capillaries are the smallest of the bunch, and they're used for exchange of material, specifically in the tissues. They are usually carried by low pressure. They carry blood under low pressure, and they're found around the tissues where nutrient and wastes are exchanged. Their thin walls allow for diffusion of nutrients, and have a very small lumen, and due to the exchange, the walls need to be very thin so that they can allow for easy exchange of diffusion of the nutrients and other materials. From here, the veins, which are pictured in the blue, will carry the blood back to the heart to get oxygenated, because this is the deoxygenated blood, and the arteries, which are pictured in the red, are returning from the heart, bringing nutrients to the capillaries, and then going through the veins back to the heart to get oxygen.
Okay, so I'm going to be reviewing both parts of the cardiovascular system, the systemic and pulmonary parts. So first what happens is oxygen-rich blood is pumped from the left ventricle into the ascending aorta. The aorta then makes an inverted U-turn to form the aortic arch, which gives rise to branches that supply the head, neck, and upper limbs. Then the aorta continues posterior to the heart as the descending aorta, which travels through the thoracic and abdominal pelvic cavities. This is what supplies the organs and cavities of the lower limbs. Okay, so in the systemic capillaries, oxygen is exchanged for carbon dioxide, which results in oxygen-poor blood. Once the oxygen-poor blood enters the right atrium, it enters via the superior and inferior vena cava. Okay, so now with the pulmonary circulation process, it carries blood from the heart to the lungs for gas exchange and returns to the heart. So basically what happens first is the oxygen-poor blood is pumped from the right ventricle into the pulmonary trunk. From the pulmonary trunk, the large pulmonary trunk divides into the right and left pulmonary arteries. So as you can see from the drawing here, these arteries transport blood into the right and left lungs. So after that, in the pulmonary capillaries, carbon dioxide is exchanged for oxygen. This results in oxygen-rich blood that then flows through the 4 pulmonary veins and enters the left atrium.